Hello, guys, and welcome to the Financial Growth Playbook. On this channel, this is the first ever video, actually. So, guys, give me some, big ups because I struggled to get here. I struggled to get here, guys. Anyways, welcome. And on this channel, we are going to talk about real life growth. We're going to talk about money, how to save it, how to create it, how to move forward with money in money for long term, short term, discipline planning, whatever it is. We're going to talk about it. One thing I've realized is that YouTubers talk a lot about what facts they've read, books they've read, but they don't use real amounts of money to tell us, oh, you could use, if you are paid this amount of money, you could do this and that, you know, and grow your money or create an emergency fund. We don't get that. But today we are going to do that. Yeah, so we are going to have a financial discussion for the year 2026, the practical guide. Now, on this slide, we are talking about clearing debt. We are going to talk about clearing debt, staying consistent, creating an emergency fund, planning ahead with realistic budgets. Honestly, that's something everyone needs to do. Now, we are going to use France just because. Today we are going to use France. Tomorrow we could use pounds or from UK, or we could go to Africa. We could use the Ghana cedis or something. But today we're using France. Right. The average salary in France around 2005, 2007, 2100 average least from least to the highest I've mentioned now. Now in France, rent is very expensive, bro. The average rent is around 700 euros. The least I've ever heard in France is around 300 euros. And it could go as high as 1,000, 2,000 euros. So you're going to use the average, right? And these amounts varies from city to city. I'm not here to talk about that. You know about that. Right. So as you know, or you've heard, or you've seen somewhere before, there's something called the 50-30-20 rule. Now, this 50-30-20 rule is just dividing your money into these percentages. 50% takes your needs, 30% takes your wants, 20% takes your savings. Now, your needs are things that you cannot do without: your rent, your essentials, things that if you skip, you are going to be in deep trouble. Yeah. And your wants are your lifestyle choices, your food choices, the things you want to look good in. Those are your wants, bro. Those are your wants. And then your savings is just 20% of your amount of your salary. So I've broken it down using the 2,700 salary, and you could see that your needs, your rent is getting enough money, your wants are getting okay money, and your savings would also get an okay money, as you can see on the screen. So this is something that I'm really, really concerned about, because last December everyone was spending, and a lot of people here have gotten into debts. So we are going to tackle debts first. How to strategize. The first thing you should do is to list all your debts. You took 20 euros from Mark, 30 euros from Ama, and 100 euros from Barack Wisi. I'm mentioning Ghanaian names because I'm Ghanaian. But you took all these monies and you don't know how to go about it. Bro, you always have to speak to the people first and have a plan with them. So you list all your debts, and from highest to lowest. Always know that it's always good to pay the least first. Even though someone would argue that you should pay the biggest one first. But I think the least one is much faster. It gives you the ticks, it gives you the consistency. It pushes you like to continue to pay all your debts. Right. So here we go. You do that, and also sometimes your debts actually comes with interest. So you also have to list them such a way that you group them by interest. If Kwesi said bring I want a 5% interest on the loan I give you, bro. You have to group them well so that you know which one to go for. So you wouldn't be found wanting. Right. So the next thing over here is building an emergency fund. So we've spoken about debt. The next thing you want to do is to be independent. Once you are able to pay your debt, the next thing you always think about is your independence. Abraham Maslow's law of theory of needs. Right. So what's an emergency fund? A lot of people don't know what an emergency fund is. It's just 3 months to 6 months of whatever essentials you spend on, right? Essentials are basically your rent, your food, and your bills, bro. So, like as I'm giving, your rent could be 720 euros. Your food per month is around 300 euros. Because if you eat like me, you'll be doing like 20 euros a day or 5 euros a day, bro. And probably you would get to 300 euros. So imagine you are doing 30 euros a day. It could be more. So eat well. That's what I would say. And your bills. Now, next is that you create an emergency fund from 3,600 to 7,200. And we are doing this based on the amount of essentials we have per month. So if we have 1,000 per month for 6 months, will be 6,000. That's how much we'll be having in our emergency fund. But hey, I'm not going to scare you. We are going to break it down and see how we are going to save towards it. The first thing to do is to know that your 50-30-20 rule, the 20% in it is what you use to save for your emergency fund. Right. So you don't have to panic and say, oh, I've already done 50-30-20 rule. I don't even know how to go about the emergency fund thingy. Right. So what you do is that you divide your 20% into different groups. So you could have emergency fund in your 20%. You could have your debt repayment in your 20%. And you could have your savings in your 20%. So depending on maybe how in-depth you how much indebted you are, you could actually skip your savings and focus on your debt and emergency. Always focus on your debt and emergency if you have so much debt, right? Don't start saving yet. Now this is what you do. 20% of 2,500 is 500 euros a month. 500 euros. If I take 300 euros out of it, I'll be left with 200 euros. 300 euros will be used for emergency fund because it's always important to have something to lean back on so that you don't just go back borrowing again. You get it. So you need to save more for your emergency fund so that even if you are in debt and you are repaying, you don't fall back on your debt and say, oh, please, can I get an extra? You get me? So that's the whole idea. If you have high interest also on your debts, it's important to pay your debts first, right? If only you have high interest on your debts, pay your debts first. But if you have low interest or no interest at all, always focus on your emergency fund first. Now, to build your emergency fund, we are not going to save for 3 months straight. We have to do it little by little. Now, let's first think about how to get an extra 1,000 euros so that I would be independent, right? So you would focus on that first, then you focus on your 3 months, then you focus on your 6 months so that it doesn't become overwhelming. Now, the purpose of this tool is to actually support you when you have issues like medical issues, urgent travels, someone from Ghana, black tax, all those things, is asking for money and all those things. The purpose of saving for an emergency fund is to handle those surprises. So it's always important to have that and be consistent with it. So it starts with the starter fund. Starter fund with the salary that we chosen, our starter fund should be ranging from 1,000, because our emergency fund for 1 month for our essentials is 1,200. So if you have a starter fund of 1,000, it's cool. It covers at least your essentials, right? Then what you have to do, if for instance you don't have to pay debts, and your 20% is emergency fund and savings, separate those accounts. Don't mix everything together. Separate them. You understand? It's always important to separate stuff so that you know which money you are using, which money is theirs. You don't go into other accounts and be taking and spending. Once you separated them, you can save them and manage them properly. Right. Once you hit your 1,000, you know that you are not living paycheck to paycheck anymore. Right. Just know that you're not living paycheck to paycheck anymore once you hit your 1,000, and you can always breathe once you hit your 1,000. Now, we are going to end here because I have more information for you in our next video. So, catch you guys, subscribe, and wait for me next week at 6 p.m. Thank you. Bye.